Yeah, I hope that you hearing me. This is the future, all about cybersecurity. Talking about the hackers, I'm just trying to warn you. From the one and only legend, the cyber informer. Hey, thanks for joining the podcast. Time to get it hype. This I know you gonna like, giving you some insight. They try to hack in your database, homie, not today. Thinking they can escape with your data and without a trace. Oh yeah, this is the cyber informer. Hackers, you going down like, oh yeah. This is the cyber informer. Hackers, you going down, yeah.
It's time for Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast, the podcast. This is episode 1, Introduction to the Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Loyal IT Solutions. For all of your IT business needs, visit loyalit.com.au for more information on how we can help your business. And by the Gosford Erina Business Chamber, growing local business. And by the Australian Federal Government. Welcome to Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect, the podcast. I am Michael Trimblett, the Cyber Informer. I am also the General Manager of Loyal IT Solutions and am a certified ethical hacker. There are small medium enterprise owners who are concerned about cybersecurity, but they likely don't know where to start or what questions to ask. This is what this initiative is all about. I'll be giving you all of the information you need to start building your defenses. This is not going to be a comprehensive omnibus of cybersecurity. It's aimed at the beginner, the basics driven by the federal government's essential aid to help thwart cyber attacks. Hackers aim at the low-hanging fruit. Hackers don't care that you're a small, medium enterprise. All they see is the potential to earn money from your misfortune. When it comes to securing your business, even the most basic defenses can be enough for a hacker to move on. This podcast is supplemental to the Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast initiative. The aim is to give you something to think about in your business or personal life. I'm not going to bore you with the facts and figures or technical how-tos within this podcast series. This series will be used to shine a spotlight on what you should be thinking about, give you some useful information to help get the cogs in your mind cranking, and as the series progresses, you will know what you need to be scrutinizing in your business network or on your personal computer to not be the low-hanging fruit hackers target. It's sad that it seems you have to be a security expert just to own a computer. Firewalls, antivirus, multi-factor authentication, TCP/IP routing, Wi-Fi, bandwidth, all of these words and more get thrown around in cybersecurity articles or by IT professionals, sometimes just to bamboozle the client into making themselves sound better than they actually are by using these buzzwords. In my opinion, if you haven't studied cybersecurity, you are not qualified to offer advice about it. Before I started out on my ethical hacker journey, I thought I knew a lot. Turns out, I knew the concepts, but nowhere near enough to call myself an expert. In this podcast series, I will look to distill down the facts and cut away the guff, so you know what you need to be concentrating on. This initiative is tantamount to locking your doors when you leave the house. A determined burglar may find weaknesses in your home's defenses, but someone jiggling doorknobs to see if the door will open will move on quickly. Unless you're a nation-state actor, hackers will do the digital equivalent of testing the doorknob. If it opens, they can cause damage. If it doesn't, then there are plenty of other targets on the internet, so they'll likely move on. And it's important to note, it's not the case if you avoid it once, then you are safe. There are scans running on the internet all the time. Steve Gibson, a leading security expert from the Gibson Research Corporation, who I've been following since 2005, coined the term internet background radiation, which basically means there are scans and connection attempts happening all of the time. This means if you drop your defenses, you could be stung. I was on an engagement during COVID where I was asked to see if there were any weaknesses in a setup at home for a business owner who ran their business from their home. I've been given permission to tell this story as long as names and businesses remained anonymous. I found they had a NAS device, that is a network attached storage, typically used for backup, which was accessible from the internet. This is a big no-no, you shouldn't have that happening. I started trying to guess passwords. I was able to gain access because they were using a weak password. Part of the hacker's playbook is covering your tracks, so I went into the logs to see if I could clear them. When I looked at the logs, I was stunned to see that there were no less than 4 current attacks on that NAS device by hackers attempting to guess the password. As the engagement said, we needed to see how vulnerable they were. So I was able to use a tunneling technique, yep, that's geek speak that I mentioned before, to move through the NAS and onto their internal network, where I found their router. Using the same username and password combination, I was able to access their router. The tunneling technique is limited, so opening up other avenues into the network is important to fully compromising the network. Their router supported virtual private network technology, so I set myself up a VPN connection and connected that way. This allowed me more flexibility on the network. I could run scans and exfiltrate data. As this was a home and they had multiple Google devices on the network, I could see things like upstairs lounge speaker, downstairs main light switch, and back patio speaker, among many other devices. This gave me a good idea of how their house was laid out. The most critical thing was that they had copies of their personally identifiable identification documents stored on the NAS. This had bills which showed their address, insurance and registration documentation which show their vehicle's license plate, and I came across bank statements and copies of birth certificates. This information can be used to steal your identity. In the end, they were unaware of their weaknesses, and it was a family member who knew a little bit about IT who set up their network. They didn't know the NAS device was accessible on the internet and asked me why this happened. There is a technology called Upnp, which is Universal Plug and Play. This takes the configuration out of making devices accessible from the internet. This was developed by Microsoft for use with their gaming consoles to make connectivity easier for those people with Xboxes. Sadly, it can open security holes in networks simply by having the technology turned on in the router and turned on individual devices. This is frequently found as this is a default setting. As Steve Gibson says, it's the tyranny of the default. Default settings are typically chosen to make it easier for end users, but it can lead to security holes such as the one here that led to a full compromise of their network and data. There are a few takeaways from this story. 1. Disable unneeded services. UPnP is more of a security risk than it is worth. Outside of the IT industry, this is not widely known. 2. Don't reuse the same password on all devices. 3. Don't use easily guessable passwords. One of the most basic things you can do to protect yourself is create a strong password. I go in depth talking about passwords and having a strong password policy over in the Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast Premium membership. Having strong passwords, which are not reused between devices, are simple things you can do to increase your security. I was having a chat to my dad recently, and he keeps all of his passwords written on a piece of paper, which he stores in his cupboard. Whilst you may laugh at this, it is not people within his home which he doesn't trust. It is the people on the outside. This practice is not best practice, and we can easily pick that apart in a business setting. But for personal computers you use within your own home, you are likely to be protecting yourself from outsiders rather than those within your household. If your passwords are too complex to remember and you have different passwords for every website you visit and you write them on a piece of paper and store them in your cupboard, you're doing most things right. There are digital ways of doing this, like using a password manager. Again, some are better than others, which can help you manage all of your complex passwords. People also laugh at people storing their passwords under their keyboard. This does nothing to protect you if the hacker is sitting at your desk. So doing this within an office environment is not recommended. But if you are absolutely sure no unauthorized person is going to be sitting at your desk trying to hack your account, then it may be an acceptable practice. I would not do it because I trust my password manager, but it all comes down to where your threats are located. Don't think that just because someone is not permitted to enter your office that they won't do it. What about your cleaner? What about the mail person dropping in your mail? These people may take that opportunity to look under your keyboard to steal your password if that's where you keep it. Malicious insiders account for a large percentage of hacking and data leaks. Do you trust your employees enough to just leave the keys to the kingdom laying under the doormat, so to speak? I admit, I used to have the same password that I use for all of my online accounts. Loyal IT Solutions recently purchased a service that allows you to scan for any leaked data on the dark web. I was horrified to see that my master password had been leaked. This means I was susceptible to something called a password spraying attack. Password spraying is taking the leaked username and password combination and trying those credentials against many websites to see which websites you have reused your password on. As soon as I saw my password was leaked, I spent the entire afternoon resetting my passwords on every website I had used it on. I'm still finding sites that I had used my old master password on. I had one just the other day where I received an email from an online service saying a new login had occurred on my account. I'm sure you've seen these emails. That alerted me to the fact that my old password had been used on that site, so I promptly logged in and reset my password. We talk about the best password policy over in the membership area of the initiative, so I won't go into too much detail here, but what I will tell you is that I use a password manager and I have absolutely no idea what my passwords are because they are complex and not used on more than one website. I mentioned the dark web. I will talk about this in more detail over in the membership area, but this is the place where hackers can go which is not accessible via the surface internet. In other words, the surface internet is the public internet we all use. The dark web is accessible via a special web browser and is considered completely anonymous. Google can't search the dark web, and putting a dark web address into your browser will not take you to the dark web website. Funnily enough, Facebook actually has a dark web address too, which I found odd because the purpose of social media is to share your life with people. By its very nature, you are not anonymous. As part of the government initiative, Loyal IT will visit your business to perform a number of scans. One of these is a dark web scan to see what passwords from your organisation have been leaked. I'll talk more about that at the end of this podcast. For those who are wondering, I use Bitwarden and Microsoft Edge's Sync for my password managers. There are some advantages and disadvantages of using these products. I'll cover password managers in the premium membership. As discussed in the multi-factor authentication video over on the website, cybersecurity.loyalit.com.au, there is a balance between security and usability. This is an unending battle where too frequently usability wins over security. This is not good for your data, whether it be personal or business data. Make a system too usable and security will suffer. Make it secure and usability will suffer. I must admit, my systems are locked down and sometimes it frustrates me having to jump through hoops just to do a basic task. But at the same time, I feel somewhat comforted that my security practices keep my data safe so I can sleep a little better at night. Getting back to the story I told, a NAS device is what's called an IoT device, or Internet of Things device. IoT devices are typically any internet-connected physical object which has a purpose of exchanging data with other devices over the internet. Such devices include security cameras, Google or Amazon smart devices or speakers, smart power points, and even light bulbs. IoT devices are notorious for not being secure. They are often made on the cheap by a Chinese manufacturing concern. They are easy to set up and cheap to buy, which is why they're so popular. This is not so great if you're concerned about your security. Security is hard to do, and if you're buying something cheap that needs an internet connection, my bet is that it is not secure. I try not to make my IoT devices accessible via the internet. There are some exceptions though. One of these is my home security cameras. They are made by Swan, and in order to make it easier for the user, they are constantly connected to the Swan cloud. I can't change that without neutering the product. This opens up my home network to the possibility of being hacked. I'm not saying my cameras are hackable, but I can't control these devices in the way that I want to. I use my cameras remotely, so what do? I put them on a separate network, a guest network if you will. These cameras can still access the internet and are remotely accessible, but as they are on a completely separate network to my critical internal devices, such as my NAS and my servers. Yes, I have servers at my home. If they were to be hacked, the hacker will not be able to access my critical equipment. These devices are exposed to the internet, but I have minimized my risk of complete compromise by separating out these IoT devices. The same should be done in business. There is a website you can go to in order to search for exposed devices. It is called Shodan. Shodan. Just before I started recording this podcast, I visited shodan.io and typed in QNAP into the search engine. QNAP is a brand of NAS device. The same device I was able to tunnel into the home network I talked about earlier. I was stunned to see that there are currently 213,845 QNAP devices currently accessible on the public internet worldwide. This is scary. If any of those devices are poorly secured, it could be a case that a hacker could walk straight through and into the internal network. If a hacker can access your internal network, the sky is the limit as to what they could do. They could steal your data, find your personally identifiable information to steal your identity, or deploy ransomware and lock all of your data, then ask for payment for it to be unlocked again. How damaging could this be to your business? It's important that you don't take the head in the sand approach to cybersecurity, thinking you won't be a target. Sadly, everyone is a target. I'll tell you a story about a small business I was working with. We inherited the business from another IT company. They had insecure remote access and they didn't back up. I hope you're thinking, oh no, I know where this is going, and not, hey, that sounds like me. For 9 months, we were on them about securing themselves, but they wanted easy remote access into their business and they felt $1,500 for a robust remote access and backup solution was too expensive. Sadly, one night, they were hacked through the insecure remote access. The hackers deployed a ransomware and asked them for payment in Bitcoin to the value of $10,000. After going back and forth with the hackers, they negotiated the ransom down to $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. As soon as they paid it, the hackers went silent. Not only did this small business lose $1,000, but they lost all of their data. Can you imagine waking up tomorrow and not having any of your business data? What would you do? This is a situation the business faced. Sadly, this meant they had to shut their doors, let the 5 employees go, and then attempt to start the business back up again from their garage. It's not just businesses that are targeted either. What about your personal data? Something that has no value to anyone else is my photos, but they have great value to me. If I woke up tomorrow and my photos were all gone, and someone said I can give you them back for $1,000, would I pay it? It would hurt, but you bet I would. What are your baby photos, holiday pics, or family photos worth to you? You need to be thinking of these things now before it's too late. Just in case you're wondering, I have 5 copies of my photos in backups, removable hard drives, in the cloud, and on separate computers. I'm not chancing anything with these images because they cannot be replaced. Back to Shodan for a moment. You can search Shodan for a number of different things. Insecure remote access is one, device models is another, and IP addresses are another. There are many other search terms that you can use, but these are the most common. You better believe it's easy. You better believe it's cheap, and you better believe you are listed on that site if you have exposed services. We'll talk more about Shodan and do some demonstrations over in the premium membership. Speaking of being hacked, let's talk about Facebook for a moment. Many people rely on Facebook not only to stay in contact with family and friends, but as a business tool. I won't go into too much detail as we'll talk about this in more detail in the next episode. However, I worked with one of our clients whose Facebook account was hacked. Now you might think that because Facebook has almost 3 billion users, that's billion with a B, they would be used to their users being hacked and they would have a robust solution that's easy to fix. That might be the case if you have everything set up perfectly, but what is perfectly according to Facebook? Facebook recommends you have a strong password. Multi-factor authentication is set up a recovery phone number, have 3 friends that can be a contact for you if you get locked out, and remove any email addresses that are old or disused. That's easy to say after the fact, but many people don't think of this as they don't think that they'll be targeted. You may not be targeted in a premeditated way, but if someone performs a password spraying attack on Facebook and your username and password combination works, they will see what havoc they can cause. If a hacker compromises your account, the first thing they will do is try to remove as many of these safeguards as possible, which makes recovering the account harder. What's even worse is if these safeguards don't allow you to take control of your account, you'll have to go through Facebook's I've been hacked link, which is not great. There is no phone number to call, no live chat, just a link to report that you've been hacked. It then takes days for them to get back to you, and you then have to provide them with a number of official documents like passports or driver's licenses. They then make the determination it is you, and they give you back access to your account. What's so distressing about this is the lack of communication. Think about what this would mean to you if you could not log onto Facebook one day. You couldn't communicate with friends and family. You may have photos that you've only posted to Facebook, and if you run your business page from your personal account, someone could ruin your image by posting inappropriate content to your business page. Not only that, many people keep things like their birth date, phone numbers and addresses in Facebook private or shared only with friends. That information can then be exfiltrated by hackers. You're not only losing control of your private information, but potentially private information of your contacts also. The moral of the story is to set up as many safeguards as possible in Facebook. We'll have a premium video on how to lock down your Facebook account over at cybersecurity.loyalit.com.au. An important note about hacking is the tools to hack systems are freely available. There is a Linux distribution called Kali Linux, which contains many of the tools you need to hack networks. It is also the platform for installing other tools that may not come by default. Regardless, the tools are there for free. All a hacker needs to know is how to use the tools. That is where specialized knowledge and taking the time to learn how these tools work comes in. The internet is a hostile environment, but it wasn't always that way. The internet started life as ARPANET in the 60s. By the 80s, the internet's enabling protocol TCP/IP was invented, and this added to ARPANET, which allowed 2 separate networks to communicate with each other. In the 90s, this started to take off. You'd have your modem, which made a god-awful noise when connecting to the internet. You normally had to have a good reason to be going on the internet, like research or sending an email. These days, the internet is always on, and people go on it to look at cat videos, or share photos with family and friends, or simply just pass the time. The ubiquity and always-on nature of the internet is what makes it great, but putting this open door in people's hands that do not understand the technology is what hackers thrive on. Each month I'll talk about some of the hacks that have occurred and or cybersecurity news which have made headlines. This month is a really interesting topic. Europol's press release from Tuesday, June 8th, had the headline 800 criminals arrested in biggest ever law enforcement operation against encrypted communication. This was an amazing story, something you would see in a spy novel or in a Mission Impossible movie. The Untitled Sting operation, which was also known as Operation Trojan Shield by the FBI and Operation Ironside by the Australian Federal Police, was a collaboration by law enforcement agencies from as many as 20 countries. It ran from late 2018 through to 2021, and during that time the operation intercepted and exploited the intelligence obtained from 27 million messages. Those messages were sent through the supposedly secure smartphone messaging app called Anom, A-N-O-M. The Anom service, which was widely used by criminals, was actually an app distributed by the FBI and the Australian Federal Police. These agencies were able to monitor all communications taking place across the network. Through collaboration with other law enforcement agencies worldwide, the operation resulted in the arrest of over 800 suspects allegedly involved in criminal activity in 16 countries. The Untitled service grew to service more than 12,000 encrypted devices to over 300 criminal syndicates operating across more than 100 countries. Untilted's goal was to target global organized crime, drug trafficking, and money laundering organizations regardless of where they operated. The service was designed to appeal to the underworld by offering an encrypted device with features sought by the organized crime networks, including remote wipe and duress passwords. Duress passwords are passwords which could be given under duress, which would wipe rather than unlock a device. These features ensured criminal networks would trust and adopt the app. How did the app get trusted by the criminal underworld? There was an app called Phantom Secure, which was shut down in early 2018, which left a gap in the market as this was the app of choice for criminals. Simultaneously, the FBI in California had a person in custody who had been developing a new fully encrypted device and app for use by the criminal networks. He was facing charges by the FBI, but decided to cooperate with them in exchange for a reduced sentence. He developed the Untitled app and an encrypted smartphone device, which he was able to distribute to the criminal networks via the former distributors of the Phantom Secure app. At the end of Untilted's operation, a series of large-scale law enforcement actions were executed across 16 countries, resulting in more than 700 residential searches, more than 800 arrests, and the seizure of over, get this, 8 tons of cocaine, 22 tons of cannabis and cannabis resin, 2 tons of synthetic drugs such as amphetamine and methamphetamine, 6 tons of synthetic drug precursors, 250 firearms, 55 luxury vehicles, and over $48 million worth of various worldwide currencies and cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. And there are still a number of operations planned for the coming weeks. Wow. This goes to show if you have an encrypted messaging app such as Signal or Threema, I'm skeptical about the security of WhatsApp, then law enforcement need to resort to these lengths in order to read communications. If there's enough interest, I can talk more about secure messaging apps, which ones I rate, which ones I don't, and the reasons why. Okay, a little closer to home, we had our monthly Patch Tuesday, which is a term the industry has adopted for the Windows updates you receive to your computer every month. Microsoft schedule these for the second Tuesday of the month US time, which means we usually see them on the second Wednesday of the month. This patch cycle has now been adopted by many other companies in the industry, so now we get updates not only for Windows, but for many other products all on the same day each month. To summarize what we saw this month, Intel fixed 73 security vulnerabilities, Adobe patched 41 vulnerabilities across a number of their products, and Microsoft patched 50 flaws in Windows 10. In the last few months, Microsoft have patched 55 vulnerabilities in May, 114 in April, 122 in March, 56 in February, and 83 in January. For those not keeping score, that's 480 flaws that have been patch updated this calendar year alone. This just goes to show, if you're not applying updates to your computers, then you are leaving yourself open to exploitation. If you are still using Windows 7, of which updates were ended in January 2020, can you imagine how many vulnerabilities Windows 7 has that will never be fixed, considering the number of vulnerabilities found in the last 6 months alone in Windows 10? The message here is, if you are in the 16% of all computer users still running Windows 7, please upgrade to Windows 10. Okay, we're coming to the end of the podcast. As mentioned at the top of the podcast, the Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect is an Australian government cybersecurity awareness initiative that Loyal IT Solutions is spearheading on the Central Coast. Come over to cybersecurity.loyalit.com.au to get more information about the initiative, subscribe to the newsletter to be kept up to date on the upcoming events, and watch the videos on the federal government's Essential 8. The Essential 8 are the strategies to mitigate cybersecurity incidents. It is a prioritised list of mitigation strategies to assist organisations in protecting their systems against a range of adversaries. To read more about the Essential 8, visit https://loyalit.com.au/E8. This will redirect you to the government's website. You will see there are 8 items which are broken into 3 major categories. The categories are mitigation strategies to prevent malware delivery and execution, mitigation strategies to limit the extent of cybersecurity incidents, mitigation strategies to recover data and system availability. The Essential 8 category, mitigation strategies to prevent malware delivery and execution, includes 4 items, which are configuring Microsoft Office macro settings. This attempts to block macros from the internet and only allows vetted or trusted macros to run. Application control. This is to prevent execution of unapproved or malicious programs and installers. Patch applications. This targets programs such as Flash, web browsers, Microsoft Office, Java, and PDF viewers. It is also recommended to use the latest versions of applications. User application hardening. This involves configuring web browsers to block Flash, ideally uninstall it, ads, and Java on the internet. Disable unneeded features in Microsoft Office, web browsers, and PDF viewers. The Essential 8 category, mitigation strategies to limit the extent of cybersecurity incidents, includes 3 items, which are restrict administrative privileges. This is aimed at operating systems and applications based on user duties. Multi-factor authentication. This should be turned on for VPNs, remote desktop protocol, SSH, and other remote access programs, and for all users when they perform a privileged action or access an important data repository. Patch operating systems. This is what we were talking about before, where Microsoft have patched 480 flaws this year alone. This item strives to patch computers and network services with critical vulnerabilities within 48 hours, use the latest operating system versions, and do not use unsupported operating systems such as Windows 7. The Essential 8 category, mitigation strategies to recover data and system availability, includes the single item, daily backups. This Essential 8 item ensures you back up important data, software, and configuration settings. You can learn more about these items for free over at cybersecurity.loyalit.com.au. You can also register your interest in a free cybersecurity scan of your network. As part of this initiative, you'll have one of our trained technicians visit your business and perform the following scans. An internal vulnerability scan of a sample of your network. I say a sample because scanning the entire network can take a very long time and the conditions must be perfect for a successful full scan. A sample scan of your network will give us a snapshot of what you have to open the conversation about your compliance with the Essential 8. We will sit with you while we go through the federal government's cybersecurity questionnaire. This asks the big questions about your cybersecurity defenses and at the end gives you guidance on what you need to concentrate on. We will perform a dark web scan for your business so you know what credentials have been leaked online so you can take action. We will then distill these down into a report with a list of priorities to help you shore up your defenses. You can take this to your current IT provider, do it yourself, or have Loyal IT Solutions help you implement these for you. As they used to say in the classic 80s cartoons, knowing is half the battle, and this awareness campaign is providing you with the knowledge to protect yourself online. Over at the website, you'll find the premium membership. This really helps us keep the content going. Without your support, this initiative will not continue the momentum and the ultimate mission will not be achieved. For the monthly subscription, you will gain access to the premium how-to and Q&A videos, along with access to a private Facebook group where you'll be able to interact with me directly and with the rest of the community. I really want the topics to be driven by you. Your questions will drive the content I create. Along with the premium access, you will also have a phone or remote support call each month to address your cybersecurity concerns or provide assistance in implementing your cybersecurity strategy. This represents excellent value for your business. Whether you are someone who prefers to understand the technology and has a do-it-yourself mentality, or you just want someone to do it for you, we cater for everyone. Head over to cybersecurity.loyalit.com.au for more information. While you're there, why not follow our Facebook page at facebook.com/CSBCAPCC. I know it looks like alphabet soup, but it's simply the initialization of Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast. Follow our other social pages as well at CSBCAPCC on Twitter, which will keep you updated on everything Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast. You can also follow my Twitter account, which is at cyber_informer. I will be discussing many different cybersecurity topics of a general nature and not necessarily Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast focused. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast using your favorite podcatcher and follow us on social media. Until next time, stay safe online.
Oh yeah, this is the Cyber Informer. Hackers, you going down like, oh yeah, this is the Cyber Informer. Hackers, you going down, yeah.